these past 2 or 3 weeks, I have really been thinking about the kind of person I was in college. I was kind of a mean girl and I definitely hurt people, but looking back, I myself was really hurt. And while that didn't give me room to do and say the things that I did and say, it also makes sense why I in turn hurt others. Hi, my name is Bailey Terosian, and I am making a series right now called Becoming. I've jokingly referred to it as Project Hard Launch at times because I'm launching a new version of myself, so to speak. But this project of Becoming is basically just my reflections and musings on life and all the different things that I've gone through to get to be the person I am today, and also just figuring out what that next version of myself looks like. Today I wanted to talk about my college experience and what my college experience is teaching me now, and more specifically the relationships and the organizations and all the different things that I was involved in college, and how that's kind of helping me shape who this more grown-up and more mature version of myself is, because I definitely made a lot of mistakes, but through those mistakes I can make a change in my life and be a better person. So let's get right into it and talk about my college experience and how that was. I started college during the pandemic. I started at Miami University in Oxford, Ohio for my freshman year. And then after that, I transferred to the University of Cincinnati a year in because the pandemic was weird and I wanted a fresh start, and I found that at UC. I really wanted to make friends and be involved in the community when I got to the University of Cincinnati, and so I joined a sorority and through sorority recruitment right at the beginning of the year. And I also got really involved with my now husband's fraternity. I was their sweetheart for a little bit, and I did that, and I was also just in like every other club and organization I could participate in. While that was awesome, I found myself feeling really burnt out a lot, and it was partially because of the really heavy workload. But there was also a few other things going on, and one of those things was that I was dealing with a lot of mental health struggles at the time. I was kind of depressed, and I just really hadn't realized. I think the pandemic made me kind of in touch with that like kind of sadder, darker side of myself, and that was something I was still kind of figuring out how to deal with. I was also dealing with undiagnosed ADHD, and I had no idea I had that. So I started kind of, working on getting help mentally at that time, but it still hadn't like fully taken effect. And so that was one big thing that was kind of going on that kind of derailed my college experience, so to speak. At the time, my sorority was also upgrading their house from a small house on Main Street that had been there forever to a very large mansion. And it was really cool, but at the same time, it was really crazy because dues which were already the most expensive on campus had now risen sky high, and I at the time was already paying for college by myself through loans and also through my GI Bill, which didn't cover everything because I was just in the reserves, and it was just a lot of like weight financially that I was dealing with. On top of that, because I have always been neurodiverse and I kind of connect with people a little bit differently than some others do, I felt like I was kind of an outsider even though I was at all the events. I found myself being the photographer rather than ever being in the photos myself. I found myself on the outskirts of friend groups and discussions, and all in all, I felt really lonely, and I felt like it was weird because I was surrounded by lots of people, and I shouldn't have felt lonely in a crowd of hundreds of people, right? I think in college I kind of hit a breaking point with my organizations and my friendships and all of that. I was just so done and so frustrated with so many things, not only in my life, but just, things that were happening externally as well. Even though I think the external was definitely lesser so than the internal that I was dealing with and that I needed to kind of figure out. And I had to just like step away from a lot of things, and I didn't do it the most graceful way possible. I left, and because I was so hurt, I took my time hurting other people in the process, and that's not something I'm proud of, but again, that's something we can learn something from. When I left my sorority, I took to talking crap on TikTok because I was doing that at the time. And I kind of had a little bit of a social media presence going with vintage fashion and all of that. Even though I've never been great at the content creation and I'm still learning every day. And that was just very not great of me, so to speak. I really struggled with not having an outlet for my frustration for quite a while. And I felt like by venting, maybe somehow I would find like a community or some sort of camaraderie in my misery. And I think that that was not a very healthy choice. There's that old saying, hurt people, and I honestly think that that couldn't have been more true in my case during college, because I felt so hurt and almost so betrayed, because I felt in my mind I went into my sorority and all the other college orgs that I was a part of with such a, such high expectations and such excitement, that when it let me down, I felt not only devastated because it let me down, but I felt devastated because now I was even more alone than I already felt. And I was very, very lonely at the time, and I was very isolated in so many ways. Even though I did have some great relationships, I still just felt really just not confident in who I was, and I was dealing with a lot of insecurity. But you're probably thinking, what does all of this have to do with now and who you're becoming? Well, because I've been reflecting on this for so long, and I've been going to therapy now for 5 or 6 years, which is great, and I have a wonderful therapist. I think, reflecting, I think that in this new phase of my life, I really want to lean into kindness and compassion and understanding. And I want to take time before I react and before I, respond to frustration, because I'm one of those people that when I feel something, I feel it very strongly. And I feel very emotional about things. But sometimes when people say or do something towards us, it's not because of anything that we've done wrong. It's because of the way that they're feeling. And flashback to college, I was the person on the opposite end of that. I was doling out frustration and misery to others because I was feeling that myself. I had an experience kind of, I don't want to say similar, but an irrelevant experience, so to speak, this week. I'm in a master's in fine arts program. That's basically all online, at least for me. I know some people do classes in person, but since I'm in Los Angeles and my school is elsewhere, I'm just doing them online. I did a workshop this week where I posted a piece that was mainly for personal use, because I don't plan to get a nonfiction book published anytime soon, as that's not my favorite genre to write. And one of the students in the class who clearly has a lot of experience, and he definitely brings some stuff to the table, he made a comment on my work about that was just very irrelevant to the actual workshop itself, and was basically like, why would you even share this in the first place? This is a horrible idea. And basically tried to give me a million other ideas. And that was really hurtful because, I've done a lot of workshops before, but I've never had someone just outright say, like, your idea sucks and you shouldn't be writing this, even though I had said it was for personal use only and not for publication. But, I responded in kindness, and I responded and tried to take a deep breath as much as I could, to kind of say, we're here to learn and we're here to grow, and not everybody's here for the same purpose. But kindness and, just a little bit of compassion and a little bit of empathy can go a long way in a situation, especially when you can't see someone and you don't know what people are going through. And I don't know if that made a difference for him. I don't know if he, changed his mind in any sort of way. I don't know if he just said that because he himself is hurting or he himself is facing insecurity in his writing. But, I think so often in life, that little bit of kindness, that little bit of slowing down and reflecting not only on our own actions, but on the actions of others and why they might be making those choices, can help us so much, just being a more intentional person. I'm gonna stop this here, but I will be posting a more comprehensive college lifestyle story at some point here in these next few weeks, because I wrote an article about it from on my blog called Sage and Sanctified, where I talk about faith, family, and femininity, and relationships, and dating, and like all things girly, and being a woman in your mid-20s. And so I, will definitely touch base on that again sometime soon, because there's been some sort of reconciliation, so to speak, with that situation, that I honestly could not have had now had I not have gone through the healing and the reflecting that I've done these last few years. But yeah, all that being said, you know, if you want to follow along with my journey in becoming the best version of myself these next few weeks, and not just these next few weeks, but throughout life as a whole, because obviously this is not a journey that is ever done until the last day we are here on this earth, then stick around. I would love to have you here on this journey. Hopefully I can learn a little bit about video and content creation, because I struggle so much with that. I would really love to do blogs and more, you know, comprehensive videos, eventually better quality, but for now we're working with what we have, and I'm trying to be okay with the imperfection, because I am not perfect by any means, and none of us are. And all of those perfect videos and the aesthetic ones, they're so great and I love them, but you know, I myself do not live an aesthetic life. I live in a 2-bedroom apartment in Los Angeles. My life is kind of a mess. I'm figuring stuff out, and while I love an aesthetic video, you know, I'm here to share what is real. So yeah, follow along with my journey of being a real person, going through real life and struggling with real things, and hopefully we can reflect on something every day for the next, I don't even know how many days I'm going to do this project becoming, but for however many days this goes on. And hopefully we can also sit down and talk about a few other parts of my life, and maybe I can let you in on some of the things that we're seeing in LA and city living, because I would love to share that with you, and what it's like to be a stay-at-home wife and a mom, or eventually soon to be mom. And I don't know, I have so many ideas, but just stay tuned for the journey. I would love to have you here. And if you'd like to connect, you can connect with me on Instagram at Bailey_Tarosian, where I'd love to talk to you about any of the topics that I'm touching on in this project becoming. So thank you so much for watching and for sticking around and for listening to me yap for however many minutes I've been yapping.